Hi there, Glocal citizens. Welcome back to the podcast that inspires a borderless mindset around manifesting a new world. I am your host, Florence Adu, coming to you from the historic Osu neighborhood in Accra. And I'm in a very exciting and soon to be open space. We'll talk about that with my guest. I'm a little bit on a high because last night we had our third Solutionscape and Stretch salon, and the topic was governance. And so stay tuned for all of the salons, but just to kind of get a sense of what it's like to start thinking about how we as individuals are the change, as Gandhi put it, that we all want to see. And so without further delay, let me get to my guest. She is a co-director at the nonprofit Ghana Food Movement. She calls herself a political foodie and advocates for local eating, sustainable production methods, and preservation of Black food cultures. Ghana Food Movement is a network for food actors in Ghana with the vision of a resilient local food system that provides jobs and nutritious food for all Ghanaians. And as I said, opening soon is their food education hub here in Accra. Aimée Wallin, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much.
Yay! So a little bit of background. I met you at a food event. It was a vegan festival at a lovely space, another space in this Osu Laboni area. And I discovered one of their promotion products, right? You've partnered with the company that's promoting. And I tell you, I love it. I'm going to let her talk about what the product is and how that all integrates into her work. So first of all, tell us where you're from, where you're local, and what is your craft? And we'll take it from there.
Thank you. Thank you for that introduction as well. My name is Aimée Wallin. I am from Sweden and Mali, but I grew up in Sweden. So I would say that I'm local in Stockholm. That's my hometown. 5 years ago, I found Ghana because I came to do an exchange semester at Cape Coast University in global environmental studies. And from my first week in Ghana, back then, I knew that I needed to be here more. So I started to strategizing and see how can I actually move to Ghana. And 3 years ago, that became a reality. I moved to Ghana and I started directly working with the Ghana Food Movement.
Wow.
That's
good for you.
That's how I ended up here.
Nice. So your studies, did they go directly into it? Because so global environmental studies, obviously a food movement is that, but particularly on the food side of things, how did that marriage happen?
So yeah, I've always been interested in politics and environment. So that's why I was studying political science as my bachelor. And then I was studying human security for my master's. And part of that is food security. So that's when I got introduced to agroecology, food sovereignty, security as concepts. And then I had this urge to be in Ghana and I wanted a reason to be in Ghana. And that is actually when I found Ghana Food Movement. And it made so much sense. They were a really cool group of people doing really creative things around food. But I also got to learn or understand that food connected to all of the other topics I was interested in anyway.
Sure.
So when I started working with Ghana Food Movement, then like the connections were just made and everything just made sense. I didn't think I would work in food per se. I was always, I was always thinking about conflict resolution, working for the UN, like things like this. I'm so happy that I was led into this, and because now this is like my whole life.
So how did you decide that the politics side of life and living and people and work would be where you wanted to go or study?
I think growing up in Sweden with my mom, a single mom, she had like quite strong socialistic political ideas. So that definitely influenced me. Also, in Sweden, our educational system, it's so much about us being proactive, about us seeing what we think and us knowing that like we are agents of change and we can change things. I think I was brought up with that feeling. The more that I knew that the more that I learn about the world, the more impact I can have. I think that was the kind of pathway into it.
Oh, wow. Right, right. That makes a lot of sense. And so you are this person who understands activism at your core. And then you come to a place where I'm not sure. I mean, how would you describe Ghana on that spectrum?
Yeah, so it was the context I came to Ghana in studying global environmental studies was really interesting because we got to learn about how environment and people is being set aside for profit. That was like the course was around this balance around profit and companies and foreigners coming in to just exploit, moving communities, just creating a lot of bad impact actually. And then greenwashing, like saying that they're doing something positive, but then actually when you look at the projects, it's nothing with real impact, you know? So I already started from the beginning, from the get-go, started seeing a lot of the things that were bad and things that just shouldn't be going on. Like when it comes to mining, when it comes to like these food brands coming in and dumping their products on our markets, corruption. So I learned a lot about that in the beginning, and I think it made me curious to see how I could apply some of my energy and just force into here.
So you've kind of answered my why the where question, but I want to understand why. How did you choose Ghana for studying?
I'm from Mali. My dad is Malian. When I grew up, I had the chance to visit Mali often, almost every other year. My mom actually would make sure that we travel to Mali so that I can build that relationship to the country and to my family, which I am like so thankful for, and I can't thank her enough for that. Shout out to my mom. So I knew I wanted to be in West Africa because I was familiar to Mali, but Mali is a little bit complicated when it comes to security, when it comes to opportunities. So I think I was looking for a place in West Africa that could be my place. And then I found this course in Cape Coast. Okay. And that was like, I needed an exchange program course. There was one in Ghana. It's West Africa. Let's do it.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. The pieces come together when they come together. All right. And so comparing Francophone Africa, aside from the complications that are Mali, and maybe you could touch on that because maybe some of our listeners are not aware of some of the complications of Mali, but contrasting Francophone West Africa to Anglophone West Africa, what are some of your takeaways?
Well, I would say for Mali, it's a beautifully, like culturally deep country. We are so proud of our traditions and we have such deep culture that, I mean, maybe the culture in itself is a little bit more well preserved than in some of the Anglophone countries. I feel like in the Anglophone countries, it is also in the Francophone countries, but we are just, people are so extremely looking towards the West and looking towards like the UK, for example, or the Americas. Like I feel like a lot of people really just try to adapt their cultures. And maybe in the French, well, I speak for Mali now. Let me speak for Mali. I feel like we have closer, we've kept our culture stronger, but maybe someone will, I mean, I know how deep the culture here in Ghana is, so it feels even weird to say it, but it just in some sense, a little tendency that like in Ghana, people are extremely positive and have adapted what they eat and what they wear and what they consume in terms of culture to like the West. Maybe a little bit less in Mali. And Mali is like a really big country. Like there's so many communities that are like not even well connected to the capital. So of course, like they are like, yeah, like more, I would say. But and when it comes to food, it's very different. Actually, yeah, like Ghanaian and Malian food culture is very different. I must say that I love Malian food more. Okay. I feel like it's more complex.
I agree with you. And I haven't had Malian food, but a friend of mine was telling me once when we were at a restaurant getting bad service, and, I was telling him why I eat only at very specific places here in Ghana, because I don't feel like there's love in so many of the dishes or the cooking that people partake in, right? And so he said, well, the thing is that in Francophone cultures, food is very important. And if they serve a bad meal, it's a bad reflection on them. So there's a really strong incentive to be creative in the kitchen. And so would you agree? How would you kind of make that?
Exactly. And I mean, even here in Accra, a lot of the chefs are from Togo, from Benin. So it says something about it. And that might be the French, that could, I don't know, but it could be some French influence, like that food is important, and all of these things. But yeah, it's Mali and Ghana is similar, and like I could feel that, like, okay, I know this place and I understand the culture, but then there's difference in so many other ways. And it's really exciting for me. Like, I love traveling and I love exploring West Africa. So I love discovering the different food cultures, like Senegal, Cote d'Ivoire, Mali, Ghana. Yeah, there's so much to learn.
Right, exactly. And so specifics, what are your favorite Malian dishes? Which can you share that folks should look out for, find in a restaurant somehow, somewhere?
Sure. So we have tiga tiga. So that is like groundnut stew. But here in Ghana, you'll eat more like groundnut soup, which is like quite liquidy. But our tiga tiga is like an actual stew, like a thick stew with goat meat or chicken that we eat with rice. It's like very filling, but very nice. And then we have zame. And zame is like chebujen. It's our chebujen. Or then our jollof, if you want to compare. So rice that is boiled in like with a lot of flavors and vegetables, but us, the Malians and the Senegalese, our jollof, if we call it jollof, we add a lot of garnitures, we add all the vegetables and all the protein, but that's why jollof for me is a bit underwhelming. And I actually posted a reel on Instagram where I was cooking chebujen in Senegal, and I called it the original jollof rice. And I have like 1,200 comments of people fighting on my Instagram about like, is this the best jollof? Can you even call it jollof? Ghana is the best jollof. No, Nigeria is the best jollof. And for me, for that conversation to happening like on my Instagram, I'm just like so nerdy. Like, this is amazing.
Yeah.
Like, keep going.
Yeah.
Like, I'm just reading the comments. It's like, food is so deep and it stirs up so much emotions. That's what's exciting.
It's like memories. It's like turning pages in your life story. And so it's very interesting because the way you describe your jollof, that's how my mother made jollof in the US, right? So she added vegetables and she added meat. So it was never, so when I came here and people were like, this is jollof, and I don't eat rice anymore. But I was like, the same as you. I was like, I don't really get it.
Right?
But it's okay,
And then we have this tamarind sauce that we add, and sometimes we eat it with banana, like with all these like flavor combinations. Like there's so much more to it.
Sure. So much more nutrition.
Yes, that as well.
So very well rounded. So tell us, because of the nutrition side of it, tell us about, because I find that maybe people always say Nigerians use a lot of greens in their cooking. And, we have our signature, or I'll say in Southern Ghana, which is kontomire, which is palava sauce, or egusi stew, or what have you, or soup. What are some of the greens that are in Malian food, if at all, if that is part of the staple, or if there are leaves that are part of it?
No, a lot of leaves. I'm trying to think of the names, but I can't think of the names, but a lot of greens like garden eggs, squashes, aubergine, carrots, a lot of cabbage. And we actually have a quite like strong agricultural system. We produce a lot of the food. We do rice. We even do wheat.
Like indigenous, right? Because of where it is. Yeah.
That's very fascinating. And why can't a country like Ghana that imports so much wheat import from Mali instead of from Europe? You know, then we're just complaining like coronavirus and the war in Ukraine. But what if we looked more to each other? Because we have the solutions within our countries and within our neighboring countries.
Absolutely, absolutely. To your point, what would be your solution if you were to see more regional cooperation on the food side, particularly in agriculture? What are some of the obstacles, and what are some of the ideas that you in your professional community and just personally think about?
I think we need to really get to connect like across these country borders that were made by the colonizers. A flight to Abidjan back and forth can be like 600 euros.
Exactly.
It's insane. So we need to like find ways to reconnect. We need to be traveling, like maybe organize like travels, exchanges with chefs, really connect. As we're going to get to Ghana Food Movement, but the essence of Ghana Food Movement is to be a network, not only for Ghana, but also for West Africa and for Africa. Because me personally, and we as Ghana Food Movement just believes that with collaboration, so much is possible. And everything, the whole system has been set up for African countries to not collaborate, because the West knows that if we collaborate, we're going to be unbreakable, unstoppable, So when it comes to food specifically, I think we need to really look at how are we using our indigenous ingredients? Because in Senegal and in Mali, they have more ways of using some of the indigenous ingredients like baobab, like moringa that we grow in Ghana too, but we don't use as much. Tamarind, why can't I get a baobab juice anywhere I go in Accra? There are like 3 places in Accra that has baobab juice. But in Mali, every single place has bisap, which is our sobolo, made from hibiscus, ginger juice, and baobab. Those are like always. Same in Senegal. So there's just so much potential for like creativity and innovation, also even beyond that. So like we need to be innovating and also taking it also away from Africa or beyond Africa, to the diaspora. In South America, in the diaspora, how are they also using their ingredients? In the Caribbean, they eat ake. Ake grows here too. Have you ever seen someone cook with it?
Never, yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. Instead, we're importing shortbread and baked beans and like chicken from Brazil and all of these things that we don't need. Cornflakes.
Right.
We can make fonio cornflakes. Like it's
so many things.
It's not rocket science, but it just needs that investment and it needs that encouragement and like that network and that energy.
Sure. So you brought it up. Let's talk about Ghana Food Movement. Tell us about your work. What's hot? What's topic? What's on the agenda?
Sure. So as I mentioned, Ghana Food Movement is a network for food change makers in Ghana. And we see the potential of Ghanaian food systems from agriculture to the plate. And we try to connect all the actors in the value chain because we know that we need to work together to push our food system to its real potential and to become food sovereign, where youth get jobs in the food industry, where we have access to nutritious food, where we are innovating with our local ingredients, where we are exporting the value that, our food is. Like fruits is actually like one of Ghana's golds. Blue Skies is exporting fresh mango and pineapple to Europe every single day. And we can do more of that. And that is a British man who came to set up that company. But we still use it as an example to show Ghanaian youth that this is possible in Ghana. This is the kind of resources that we have here. Exporting raw cocoa and gold is not it. So basically with the Ghana Food Movement, it started as a loose network of people coming together in 2019. And then in 2021, we registered as an NGO. We started doing more programmings and events, from panel discussions to film screenings, ingredient-specific dinners where we focus on one ingredient for a 3-course meal, for example. We built a program called the Youth in Food program where we connect university graduates to jobs in the food industry. And we've grown to become like a members network where individuals or companies can join us to be part of the network. It works as simple as a WhatsApp group where every day people can ask for leads, tell us what they've harvested from their farms. If someone wants to buy, send a chef's vacancy for a restaurant, anything that is food, everything that is super local and focusing on everything local is welcome. And then, of course, we've always dreamt of having our own space where all of this community and programming and training and everything can come together. So 2 years ago, we started working on a proposal to be able to build a food education hub. We got a partial funder, like 80% funded, and we started to build. And now we're sitting here in the kitchen, opening, inshallah, in 3 weeks. And it's a really, really big milestone for us.
Yeah, I'm excited. It's shaping up, so we're excited to see. And so tell us about how you conceived of the space and building the space. How did you decide and determine we're definitely doing this? Maybe you might have put other things to the side, that type of thing.
So we wanted it to be a community space, a space that is multifunctional so that our members and our community can come in and use it as they need. So, I mean, the base is the fully equipped kitchen. That was always going to be there because there's very little access to kitchen space in Accra. It's for entrepreneurs to come and develop their food products. It's for chefs to come and do their catering gigs. It's for culinary trainings. It's for cooking classes on all levels for amateurs and for chefs. It's for content creation around food, anything. You know, it's just not easy with kitchen space in Accra. So that was the base. Then, of course, the eatery is where the conversations happen, the events happen, where we have our food library. So one full wall of the eatery is actually a shelf where we're going to be showcasing the ingredients, the cookbooks, the inspiration around food in Ghana and Africa, and how much there is to dig into and to spark this curious mindset. Like, I want to learn, because that's how I want people to feel when they walk into our space, because it's actually the first thing you see. Like, what is that grain and what is that bean and who made this cookbook and what is all of this?
Yes.
You know, let's talk about it.
Right. Exactly. One element that I really am drawn to is the urban farm. So I love that concept and that idea. So tell us about how you're planning to kind of really maintain and manage and grow that space.
Sure. No, the urban farm was also always very important for us. We've had urban farming projects and trainings for youth before, so it was obvious that we were going to do one ourselves as well. It's just to show that it's not that complicated to grow food, and it's actually rewarding to see something grow and to feel that you have the power to feed yourself. So it's a demo farm. So of course we will grow some of the things that we use in the kitchen, like the herbs and some stuff like this, but it's also a perfect place to host urban farming workshops. So we can invite schools, we can invite different groups to come and farm with us and learn and you know, get to take home their seedlings and their seeds and start their own urban farms all across, because we also don't have a lot of green spaces. That is another thing we lack. So at least a little bit of a green space at least. And it's really, with this space, it's also really important to say that we talk about the food community, right? And that is a very broad community, but we also want to be for the nearby community here in Osu. We really want to make sure that it's a space where the street vendors and, you know, the people living around us also feel welcome, and that we also do programming. So we're going to have like food markets where we invite not only like the established fancy businesses, but also the kaklo seller and the cocoa seller, you know, so that there's always a mix, because there's these food vendors that people mostly take for granted on the streets of Accra. They have so much knowledge and like so much dedication to their art and their craft as well. So it's also about like bringing everyone together and listening to everyone.
Speaking of businesses and working with businesses, as I mentioned, I met you at a vegan festival, and the product that I now love is a Bambara milk product.
Mm-hmm.
And so tell us about how you work with businesses in that way, in terms of bringing their products to a wider audience.
So there are amazing local food brands where people that are using local ingredients and really showing the innovation that is possible, just like the bamnut milk, for example. So we try to take them into our community and connect them. So whatever they need for their business growth, we try to connect, always making connections. Now with the kitchen, like developing, testing recipes, that will be possible. We have this pool of youth from our programs, right? So whenever they need staff, we have youth that are super eager to work in the food industry, and they are everything from agronomists to food tech to communicators to graphic designers. Like we have a very broad base of youth as well, which has really been helpful for a lot of brands. But then just always like promoting. That's really important. Like we are big on social media. I'm personally big on social media, and it's just a really good tool. I'm showing people what I eat here in Ghana because I try to be very conscious about eating local, and it's not always easy, but I'm trying to show through my Instagram as well that it's possible. And we have this campaign called Buy Ghana, Build Ghana, where for 1 week, we challenge people online to only eat local products and show each other like, okay, I substituted my, almond milk to tiger nut milk. I got local chicken instead of imported chicken, like all of these like small changes and dedications that you need to make.
Right. And so people understand it is possible.
It's possible. We try to make it more accessible. We have a database of food vendors and food suppliers that's also going to be imported in the kitchen, that we have like this big notice board where suppliers can put up what they're selling. And of course, that shelf, the food library, will also be a shop. So our members, we will also be selling our members' products there.
Okay, good. Okay, nice.
So it's all about actually like promotion and marketing. And, these things can be expensive. Like we have these marketing agencies, they're charging a lot. And like for our local food brand, it's not like their first priority. So we're trying to see, can we be a bit more creative around this kind of promotion and marketing? So with our members, when we have events, we always like look at the list of our member products to see who can we like incorporate into our menus or into our events so that everyone benefits.
Well, I like that. And it makes me think about colloquial speak. So if you can share a word, a phrase, or a saying that is a meaningful part of your local experience and how or why you come to value it as colloquial speak.
Okay, that's a very, very good question. I really like Sankofa, the proverb of Sankofa, which means to go back and get, or we cannot progress without looking at our tradition and our ancient knowledge. And when it comes to food, I think it's so important. Food and agriculture, because we were doing things here in Africa that were in tune with communities and in tune with environment that was, fueling, nourishing bodies. And then when colonialism came, everything was changed. What we grew, how we grew it, what we ate, how we ate it, everything was disrupted. And I think that our way forward is to go back to what it was before and to learn from those traditions. Northern Ghanaian food culture is a really good example because it's so nutrient rich, it's climate resilient, many of those crops. That is what we need to be focusing on and learning more about. So I think Sankofa makes so much sense for Africa,
right?
And for the diaspora, yeah.
Okay, I like that one. Very nice. And so you started to talk about agriculture, and this is a great way for me to ask. So how do you envision an advocacy role for the organization on a policy level? Because I think that's a huge gap between, yes, we can promote all the products, but the enabling environment may not be where it needs to be.
Yeah. No, that's a really good question. And advocacy policy is important. We haven't really gotten there yet in terms of our expertise. There are other organizations like Food Sovereignty Ghana, for example, that does that really well. They are taking the government to court over the different seed policies and things like this. It's not in our like closest expertise, but we know that we are going to get there, and we need to get there too. our way of seeing it has been, we do our thing. We're not going to wait for government agencies to support us, because they never have, but we're going to wait for them to see what we are doing and get inspired and come to us. That has been a little bit how we've been thinking about it. But I do, of course, really think that it's important. And when we talk about eating local, it's not as simple as telling people to eat more local, eat more local. If the imported rice is cheaper, a lot of people do not have a choice. So it has to be on a policy level. And I know we're going to get there, but also who can we partner with that does it really well, and things like this. But I think with the space and us growing, the things are happening. So I think it's in the near future.
Sure. I mean, it's been, what, 3 years? Awesome progress. And so when you think about what's new and next for beyond the new space in terms of sustainability of the organization, because one thing that as a member organization or as a not-for-profit, how do you continue to be sustainable?
That's a really good question, because we have been 90% funded by grants up until now, but the kitchen is our possibility to actually generate revenue and become more self-sustained. So we will always be a non-profit, and all the profit will go back to our projects, but we want to be as self-sustained as possible. We want to be able to decide exactly what projects we do, not take donor boxes, all of these things. So with the kitchen comes models for revenue generation. So we're working on that, how people come in and rent, how we can organize events, how we organize cooking classes, we do market tours. Ghana's tourism sector is growing, and food tourism is one of the biggest sectors within tourism. So there's a lot of potential there for us. And December, January is like a really big month where we can actually make some revenue. But also consultancies. So a lot of restaurants are interested for their chefs to get trained here. We will do courses on how to incorporate more local ingredients, more nutritious ingredients, so that the chefs can go back to their restaurants and put new creative menus together. We can also help restaurants with the local sourcing part, because we have our partners, organic, local, vegetables and nutritious food that we can connect them to. So we're now trying to figure out, like, what do we have to offer really? Some things are more obvious, like the space. But then when we go to think about these consultancies, there's a lot. It's actually a lot. So we're working on it. We're taking inspiration from similar hubs across the world. We've had some good conversations with, like culinary training centers in Brazil, in Nepal, in Morocco, in Switzerland. And most of them have revenue models where the students are also creating some type of profit. In Nepal, there's a project where there's a culinary training, but they also produce food for hospitals and prisons. And that is how the training goes around. And also, you asked me also what is next. The bigger goal with this kitchen is to start a kitchen academy. So an academy with 3 tracks: culinary, hospitality, and agribusiness.
I love it.
Where we train the next generation of food change makers. And the training will happen even before the academy happens, but we are now looking for a partner to come in on a 5-year project to really build this academy properly up.
Right. I love it. Yay. That's exciting. Okay. So we are all business. And so first I want to ask you about how you hack your mindset. So what is your favorite or an innovative mindset hack? So it's something you practice, something you've heard of, or something that you can imagine.
Okay. It's a good question. I'm very much like a just go for it person. Like I feel like I'm also young. I'm 27, and I feel like I've just recently started to reflect more and take a step back. I'm just like doing a lot and like really proactive about things. Like I put a lot of energy to everything I do. And sometimes I forget to just take a pause and like, what is going on? Where am I heading? And these type of things. So I would say that up until this year, it was just go for it. But now I've been calming down in many ways, actually calming down in the sense that like I'm finding more peace, like being with myself. I'm a very social person. But I'm learning also how to enjoying like being with myself and reflecting and all of these things. So maybe one thing that I've taken that have started to grow on me the last months is that it's actually the about manifesting and about imagining and thinking ahead where I want to be and how everything that I'm doing today is because of I have this vision of where I want to be. And if you asked me like 3 years ago about manifestations, I would just be like, okay, I'm making a facial expression, but like I would just be like, okay, whatever, like hippie. But I'm understanding it now, and I'm learning more, and I'm open. I'm more open to those things.
Sure.
Yeah.
Taking time with yourself.
So ask me again in 3 years, and maybe I'll have a better, shorter answer. But I'm figuring it out.
Nice, which is all good. And so, this go-ness of you, what do you do when you're not working or going? What are some of your interests? Are you a listener? Are you a reader? Are you a watcher? Or what else do you do in your leisure time?
I love reading, and I also love writing. So recently, I've started to write more for myself and potentially for others.
Particular genre? So,
well, surprise, food. I just love everything about food so much. And I love describing my food experiences from like the taste, the textures, the sounds of food, and the small conversations that I have with people that are cooking the food that I buy. There's just like so much detail to it that I find like writing a really good way of capturing it. So that's what I've been up to actually on my free time, because I really enjoy it. And it's not something that I put any pressure on, like, oh, I have to write this and this story. I'm just like writing down, trying to describe and be very creative around how I can portray some of the food experiences that I have. And maybe further down the line, you get to read something.
We like it. And so you mentioned reading. What are some of your favorite reads?
So I went to a literature festival at the Goethe Institute here in Accra, and they were yes, and they were selling books. So I walked up to the stand and I asked them, "Are there any books with a big food theme?" So I got 2 books, and they were both fantastic. So I would love to recommend them. So the first one was Butter Honey Pig Bread by Francesca Ekwuasi, a Nigerian author. Her food descriptions are just incredible. And now I want to go to Nigeria and taste everything. Everything sounded so good. And the other one is called Jollof Rice and Other Revolutions by Omolola Ogenyumi. And that one is short stories that are interlinked in some like funny, interesting ways, and a big food theme as well. So the stories are not about food, but food is like a central part of the story. Yeah.
Okay, good. So we'll have those in the show notes, folks.
Yes.
Yay. And so this has been so lovely. I want to thank you for your time and inspiration. And it's really inspiring. I can't wait to come back and see it open and functioning and spend some time. And
it's 27th of December, big opening. You are so super invited, and anyone who's listening. And we're always open for collaboration. So with you or anyone listening, this is a space for all of us. So if you're in Accra, come by the kitchen, reach out to us on Ghana Food Movement's Instagram or hello@GhanaFoodMovement.com. Maybe you were going to ask me, but
I was. And also, please tell us where we can find you beyond the food movement.
So my Instagram is Aimée or AIMEE.WAL. On Instagram, that's where I'm most active.
Okay.
And then Ghana Food Movement's Instagram.
All right, Aimée, it was so lovely. Before we go, do you have any last thoughts that you'd like to share with our listeners?
Well, last thought is just encouraging anyone listening to explore food wherever you are, because there are so incredible stories and so much to learn through food, and that it connects to most other things. So even if you're thinking that I'm not interested in food, I think you should have a rethink, because food is a really good opener for a lot of other things.
Very much so. Thank you. All right, listeners, this has been another episode of the podcast. You can catch us Tuesdays with new episodes at globalcitizenspod.com or wherever you get your podcasts. Please like, share, subscribe. leave us a review. Leave us a review. You're going to get that little song every time. We love reviews. It helps other people find good content on the internet. And until next time, bye for now.